What up, G Life? This is beautiful Cali, California, home of gangbanging capital. You already know, obviously, California being home to so many different gang members and gangs. Obviously, names are going to overlap or get confused for each other because they have similarities in whether it be abbreviation or even in their name or even to having the exact same name. Because that does tend to happen. And we shall be covering some of those incidents right here on this one. So, with no further ado, let's get into it. Street raised, I was brought up where the G stayed. Peep game, those who didn't catch one to your brain. Stay in your lane, never wolfed it, boy, I never fake. Watch them break, watch them fall, still I remain. Never change, never try to come and rearrange. Never hate, never tripping on somebody's plate. That shit is lame, leave that type of shit for the dames. The streets don't play, oh catch up, watch your life as capes. One game, homie, that you shouldn't play. There's real soldiers in the streets gunning every day. This shit is normal in the vital part of every day. It ain't great, but I'm loyal, so I'll never change. I keep repeating, but I mean it, never lose your way. Heed the warning and the missing just for talking brave. Fuck my enemies, two faces and all the snakes. Now for this matter, just name the time and name the place. We'll get it active, fuck the gap, and I'm in face to face. Real gangsters never fold, then we never shake. I was brought up to.
You are now watching M.O.D. Entertainment.
Now, for starters, we shall be heading towards my hometown, the 818. We'll be starting off in the 818. Non-biased. I'm going to be non-biased. Obviously, you guys already know right here that I only tell it how it is, never hating. I just come and spit the facts, non-biased. You know what I mean? But we shall be starting off in the area of Van Nuys. Obviously, people who are from the San Fernando Valley are aware that Van Nuys is a chaotic area. It's definitely home to a whole lot of, criminal activity and a whole lot of gangbanging because you have so many different barrios in Van Nuys, you know what I mean? From the Haskells to the Noens to the Valerios to the Tokers, the Wicked Players, to the everybody and their mothers right here. Real talk. You know what I mean? It's one of the San Fernando Valley's most chaotic cities, one of them, And this is home. We shall be starting off with one of these barrios that gets confused for another one, which is known as the Barrio BVN. BVN translating to Barrio Van Nuys. Barrio Van Nuys is already an old school, large barrio within the San Fernando Valley. One of the San Fernando Valley's oldest barrios and one of the San Fernando Valley's largest barrios. That is a fact. You know what I mean? Can't nobody take that away from them. When it comes to numbers and history, my boy, they got it both. You know what I mean? The Barrio Van Nuys gang is said to be more than 500 members to them. So we're talking about a massive gang. But this gang obviously has the manpower because of the sheer, how long it's been here, in this area. Because the Barrio Van Nuys has been around since the 1940s that this barrio has been, right here, what they call home in the area of Van Nuys. At one point, they were the only barrio in Van Nuys, you know what I mean? But then, different gangs started sprouting out, and yeah, I already know how that goes. But essentially, their turf was everything that was from Sherman Way. Sherman Way, their territory extended to where the freeway was at, from the 405 to all the way to Burbank Boulevard. Burbank Boulevard, the territory still extended all the way to Woodman and back around. You know what I mean? Back around to Sherman Way. So everything that was in the middle was considered their barrio, throughout Van Nuys Boulevard, throughout Kester, throughout Sepulveda, throughout Hazeltine. All of that was considered the barrio Van Nuys' territory, like it was Hazeltine and Victory and what's considered Van Nuys and was considered Van Nuys and Victory and all of that, and Kester. And likewise, where the Van Nuys High School's at, all the back street, all of that was considered their barrio, their domain, their dojo, where they got it done in cracking. And obviously, the Barrio Van Nuys is old school. Obviously, through the years, it has, several different clicas from the Delenos to Los Traviesos to the Poor Boys to everything, bro. They got all kinds of different clicas, bro. It's not even funny. The Pee-wees to all kinds of different cliques, bro. They got freaking 9 clicks or some shit like that, bro. So they definitely got a lot of manpower and a lot of territory, that's for sure. But the heart of their hood, their main domain, their dojo of their barrio was on Delano Street. Anyone that's familiar with the Barrio Van Nuys knows that Delano Street was their dojo, their domain, bro. That's one of their clicas, one of the, recognizable areas. When we're talking about the Barrio Van Nuys, Delenos, obviously, you didn't want to be caught there slipping, because it definitely will go down. Um, that was already you were in the lion's den. You know what I'm saying? They definitely crack right there. But like I said, you could find them, spread out through, through all over, throughout Hamlet Street, through everywhere. These guys were everywhere. Like I said, they had the manpower to just be all over the damn place. You know what I mean? Since then, like I said, different barrios, started sprouting out. So they do have a lot of beef. They beef it with almost everybody around. But like I said, it's an old school barrio with a dominant presence right here in the 818. Now, to find a counterpart of this barrio, because this one was a question that I get asked all the damn time by different individuals, because they get these barrios confused. For this one, we actually have to maneuver our way to the city of Pacoima. In the city of Pacoima is where we're able to find the counterpart to the Barrio Van Nuys, which is known as the Barrio PVNB or VNB, which stands for Van Nuys Boys. Has no connection to the Barrio Van Nuys. It's not, they broke off from the Barrio Van Nuys. No, none of that. I don't know where people were getting these ideas from. These are the Pacoima Van Nuys Boys, who are their own gang, separate from Barrio Van Nuys. They have no connections to each other. And these guys started roughly around the later 70s, early 80s when this barrio was established. One of Pacoima's most notorious and hated barrios. I think they feud with almost every other Pacoima clique. None of the other Pacoima cliques seem to, get along with these guys. I think maybe Golita was probably the only one. And the Pacoima Piru Bloods, I know that they did have a good relationship with those two groups, but other than that, they pretty much went at it with everybody else. You know what I mean? They were kind of like the misfits of Pacoima. You know what I mean? The other cliques really just didn't like these guys, for whatever reasons. That's their business, not mine, so we'll leave it at that. Now, the Pacoima Van Nuys Boys, the reason why they're called the Van Nuys Boys is while Barrio Van Nuys is actually named after the city of Van Nuys, these guys are actually named after the boulevard. They're named after Van Nuys Boulevard. Because that's where they're at. They're on Van Nuys Boulevard. Their territory is essentially everything that's from Van Nuys Boulevard to Foothill. From Foothill, their territory extends all the way to Pierce. And from Pierce, their territory heads all the way to Glen Oaks and back around. So everything that's, throughout, that area, not a large amount of territory, but nonetheless, still their territory is considered their barrio, throughout Borden and all of that. The Noms gang. Obviously, the Noms gang, the reason why they refer to themselves as the Noms gang is that they named themselves after the apartment plexes in which they hanged out. That was the name of the apartment plexes, the Noms apartment plex. So they got their name off of the apartment plex, which, obviously was their hangout spot, their dojo, their domain. That's where they got it on in Kraken. But essentially everything was right there was their barrio, throughout Dronefield, Borden, like I said, throughout Carl Street, all of that was considered their barrio, and they were a large clica, you know what I mean? One of Pacoima's largest, and more recognizable because these guys are very active. You definitely hear about these guys putting in work. They have cliques to themselves as well. So these guys, do get on and crack in. They're one of the few gangs which before, I don't know about now, had a good relationship with the Pacoima Piru Bloods at one point, they had a good relationship. These guys, do sport the red bandana, but they are homeboys. You know what I mean? And at least from what I was told, this barrio is said to be a few hundred members to them. So they do have, the manpower. And like I said, they just feud with all the other cliques. These guys that was just always their get down. You know what I mean? But nonetheless, these guys hold it down and continue to still represent theirs for the Van Nuys Boys. Now, to find the next set of barrios that get confused for each other, we shall be starting off and heading towards the area of West LA. But to be more exact, where exactly in West LA we shall be heading to, we shall be maneuvering our way to the area of Inglewood. Inglewood is obviously one of Los Angeles' most notorious areas. LA County's areas, because, you have so many different gangs, that feud with each other, and there's just the crime rate is out of control. Not only with Hispanic gangs, but you do have black gangs as well right here who are, very respected, also been put on the map by rappers like, Mac 10 and them, you know what I mean, putting Inglewood on the map and stuff like that. So Inglewood is definitely an area that cracks. Also, King Little G, obviously, is the area where he comes from, the 106, neighborhood right here, because you do have several barrios from Inglewood 13 to the Tepas to, Malditos to, everybody right here, you know what I'm saying? And one of these barrios is known as the barrio EWF. EWF translating to Evil Ways Familia. Evil Ways Familia was a tagging crew that became a neighborhood. They were a tagging crew that had been around in the 90s, and then early 2000s, they became a neighborhood. Now this EWF, it has no connection to to the counterpart, and it has no connection to the black neighborhood Every Woman's Fantasy. So they're different. They have nothing in common, just the same abbreviation. One was a black gang, this is a Hispanic gang. So no connections to each other, just the same abbreviations. I know people get them confused. And yes, they originated out of, here in Inglewood by the Hamilton area is where they were established, where they did their thing, where they held it down. And at least from what I was told, is this, barrio was roughly around 60 to 65 members to them. And for a crew, that was a pretty large crew. When they were a crew, they were a large crew, you know what I mean? So when they became a neighborhood, that's when people were like, man, they grew awfully fast. Well, no, they were a large tank crew, since the gates either way. So you can see why the numbers, came so fast, because they were a large tagging crew before. But yes, nonetheless, they climbed up the ladder. They, held it down right there in their area and represented for theirs and continued to put theirs on the map for the Evil Way Familia right there. Now, to find the counterpart of this barrio, we actually have to be maneuvering our way to the area of Orange County, the OC. Yay. You already know the OC definitely cracks. But unlike before, we shall not be making our way to Santa Ana this time. I know we've been taking a break from Santana, as of lately. But this time we shall be making our way to the area of Garden Grove, the GG. You already know the Grove definitely be cracking, and we ain't talking San Andreas, bro. The Grove is definitely an area that pops off, and this is home to one of these barrios, the counterpart, which is known as the barrio EWR. While the other one is EWF, this is EWR. EWR translating to Evil Ways Rifa, or just Evil Ways. While the other one is Evil Ways Familia, always make sure it's EWF, while this one's just EW or EWR. And this one, as well as the other one, started off as a crew roughly around the same time period in the 90s and transitioned to a neighborhood in the early 2000s, exactly like the other one. Same name, except one's Evil Way Family, this is Evil Way Rifa. Now they're aware of each other, but back then they weren't aware of each other, at least from what I was told. Now, they cool, they represented as one, but they're two separate different gangs, you know what I mean? They just had no knowledge of each other, you know what I mean? And their barrio was essentially everything that was from Chapman Avenue all the way to West Street all the way to Lamson all the way to Harbor and back around, and everything that's in the middle was considered their barrio, of the Evil Ways Rifa. Despite what individuals want to say, bro, I could only come and spit the facts. That's where they, get down and get it cracking. Also close through the West Haven Park, through the back streets of that, is their territory, their dojo, their domain. And this barrio, at least from what I was told, is roughly around 70 members to them as well. So both, barrios being small, but because they're not as old school, because they were crews before, so they don't have a long time being established right here, and different, so many other different gangs. So they don't get to be as large as some of these other sets, But nonetheless, they still have real writers that continue to hold it down for theirs and keep representing and putting theirs on the map for the Evil Ways Rifa right there in Garden Grove. Now, to find the next batch of barrios, we shall be maintaining here in the OC, but this time, now, we shall be making our way to the area of Santana. It was only a matter of time, bro. When we're talking about neighborhoods and we're in the OC, bro, we're going to be somewhere near in Santana, because Santana is just an area that, yes, they have that many gangs, and yes, it does crack off like that, We ain't putting too much tapatio on it, homie. We legitly calling it for how it truly is, homie. We wish we were lying. And this is home to the barrio CFR or CXF or CF, which stands for Calle Flores. Calle Flores is a barrio that has been well established here in the OC for a long, long time. This is an old school barrio who already has, its roots and been well established, well recognized within this area. And their territory essentially was everything that was from Santa Ana Boulevard. Santa Ana Boulevard. Their territory extended to where they're named after, Flower Street. And from Flower Street, their territory extends all the way to McFadden all the way to Main, and back around. So everything that's in the middle is considered their barrio, throughout Highland, uh, Cubbon, throughout Bishop, throughout Chestnut, throughout Pine Street, Walnut Street, throughout First Street. All of that is considered their barrio. They had a pretty big, chunk of territory. They were a large gang before, with a few hundred members to them. Since then, they're not as large, obviously because so many different gangs, have popped up, and obviously you have bigger gangs right there, like the F Troops, who they feud with and stuff like that. So makes recruitment a little bit more difficult, but nonetheless, the Calle Flores has been right here, well established, and held their own, even though they were going at it with a lot more larger and old school barrio than theirs. They never folded. They kept representing. They held it down. You know what I mean? 10 toes down, bro. You know what I mean? They were real ones that represented. Obviously, they have car clubs that have sprouted off of them. Because, like I said, they're just so rooted into the culture because of how old and how they've been around for a long time, that people right here, know about it. And obviously they get their name off of Flower Street. They just say it in Spanish. Most barrios around this area say or write it in Spanish more than in English. So you hardly ever see it like Flower Street or, Flores Street. You always see it as Calle Flores or Calle Flores Rifa, or Calle X and then Flores, and that's how they write it. So that's what's up with the CXF or the CF, the Calle Flores right there, representing out of Santana, and continue to still hold it down for theirs and continue to put theirs on the map. And to find their counterpart to this barrio, we actually have to be maneuvering our way back to LA County, to the area that is known as Bellflower. Now, for those who are not familiar with these areas and wonder where the hell is Bellflower at, well, Bellflower is a city right next to Paramount. So it's a city right next to Paramount. That's where Bellflower is at, by Lakewood, and all that, by Norwalk, but right next to Paramount. Paramount and, Bellflower are neighbors, so that is where it's, located at. And this is home to one of these barrios, that gets confused with the other one, which is known as the Barrio CF or CXF or, CFR, like the other one, exactly like the other one, bro. The same initials, bro. That's just how it gets down. But this one is not as old school as the other one. Well, the other one's been around for a long time. This one hasn't been around that long, you know what I mean? But nonetheless, it is one of the original neighborhoods of Bellflower. When people think about Bellflower, this is probably the first neighborhood that pops into mind, which is known as the Colonia Flores 13. So the same thing as the other one. Well, the other one is Calle Flores. This is Colonia Flores. So you can see why they would get confused, because both of them hit it up the same, CXF or CF, whatever. But one is Calle Flores, this one's Colonia Flores. So you can see, where the people get the confusion, and the tattoos and all that, you know what I mean? Because sometimes they just write C and then Flores in the other one too. So, but essentially one is Colonia Flores and one is Calle Flores. Nothing in common, just, it just happens to go down like that. And their territory essentially is everything that's throughout Flower Street, just like the other one, except these guys use Flores just like the other one. Like I said, bro, it just happens to work that way, bro. Like, what can I tell you? So their territory is everything from Flores all the way to Downey, from Downey all the way to Rose, and from Rose, their territory still extends all the way to Woodruff Avenue and back around. Everything that's in the middle is considered their barrio, throughout Artesia, Ramona, Cedar, Bellflower Boulevard. All of that is what's considered the barrio Colonia Flores. One of, like I said, the dominant barrios right here within Bellflower, one of the well-recognized barrios out of Bellflower, because you do have several other gangs. You have the Oak Block Cribs, 18, the 706 Hustlers. You got Eastside Paramount right there too. You got Brown Nation Paramount también, que nomás queda allí. So, it gets hectic right here, but they tend to feud more with like the 18 shooters, you know what I mean? It seems like, they got, heavy beef and animosity. But nonetheless, the Colonia Flores, real barrio that continue to still hold it down right there in Bellflowers and continue to put theirs on the map.